once said that the greatest leader is not necessarily the one who does the greatest things. He is the one that gets the people to do the greatest things. As a prolific writer and founder of transformative institutions like the Daystar Leadership Academy, where more than 40,000 leaders have been trained in practical leadership principles, and the Daystar Business Academy, where entrepreneurs are equipped with the strategies needed to thrive, Pastor Dr. Sam Adeyemi can be put in the category of leaders. Pastor Adeyemi, who is also the founder of Daystar Christian Center, is renowned worldwide for his expertise in leadership development, strategic business consulting, and personal transformation. In today's world, especially in Nigeria, where great leaders are needed in various aspects of governance, the need for leadership development cannot be overemphasized. Joining us to share his expertise in leadership development and personal transformation is the founder of Daystar Christian Center, Dr. Sam Adeyemi. But before I bring in Dr. Sam Adeyemi, we need to go on this quick break. If you just joined us, it's still Journalist Hangout. I still have Kaide Ladende and Emeka Madunagu. But anyway, joining us to share his expertise in leadership development and personal transformation is the founder of Daystar Christian Center, Dr. Sam Adeyemi. Dr. Sam Adeyemi, so nice to have you here with us on Journalist Hangout.
Thank you so much. Happy New Year, and it's a pleasure for me to join you today.
Yes, it's a pleasure. So let's talk Nigeria, let's talk leadership, let's talk national development. Nigeria is blessed on every side, yes, with natural resources and a whole lot. Some would say that Nigeria has all the ingredients to make Nigeria a world power. Everything is here. But it is sad that Nigeria is still grossly, underdeveloped. It is a depressing irony, isn't it?
Absolutely, it is. When you know the potential is there to be successful, to be prosperous for a nation, to be developed, to run a developed economy, and you cannot realize that potential, the result is frustration. And you can actually feel that frustration right across Nigerians at this time, especially the younger population. However, leadership can change everything. First, I say that however fantastic your seed may be, the quality of the soil will eventually determine its output. The environment matters. There is this famous story about a species of the shark. When you put it in an aquarium, the longest it ever grows to be is 6 feet. However long it may have been in that aquarium, when you take it and throw it in the ocean, it grows to full size, which means that the environment has controlled or limited the growth of the shark. There's something in every single one of us human beings that makes the environment to either enhance or to frustrate or limit our potential. So when we think of Nigeria, we should take our minds off the map. Nigeria is first about people. The quality of the soil, the quality of the infrastructure, or whatever we see around us is not going to be better than the quality of the people. And that's where leadership comes in. Now, I think the place to start from is the definition of leadership itself. Because when you say leadership, a lot of people cannot separate between leaders and leadership. Leaders has to do with personalities, but leadership has to do with the process, the dynamics between the leader and the people that the leader leads. That is the big issue we need to confront right now, not only in Nigeria, but all across Africa, right? There is something that needs to radically shift about the way we cultivate human beings, about the value that we place on human beings, and about our collective vision about how we want our country and our continent to be. So we need leaders right now. and those leaders need to have vision. Vision is one of the most important qualities of a leader. But before we get to vision, maybe I should talk about empathy. I should talk about love. You actually, okay, I define vision as the ability to see people, places, and things, not just the way they are, but the way they could be.
Okay.
So first, can you see Ibadan become like Amsterdam? Can you see Kano become like Dubai? Can you see Lagos become like New York? That's the starting point. If you cannot, you are out, leadership-wise. Then how can you even see something that beautiful if you don't really care about people? So I think before we get to vision, we should talk about love. Do we really love one another? Do we care about one another in this country? We're so religious. We say we believe in God. Every religion promotes love. But the way we treat one another is so far, so different from the way they treat people in the economies that are developed. I know the economists will want to talk about the macro and the microeconomic factors, and I say forget it. Economics has to start with people. And if there isn't that care, that desire to bring the best quality out of the human being, we've not started. So I'm hoping that all of us can have a rethink and decide that we want to bring the best out of one another. I hope that we can begin to move towards that this new year.
Well, I love that part, but let's talk about, you talked about leadership recruitment this time. Imagine you want to employ someone into an organization. There is a level of certification, BSc, HND, masters. But when it comes to leadership, you know, as a senator, as a president, you don't, I think SSC is enough, or maybe you don't even have to pass it. But how do we fix this? How do we sanitize the leadership process in Nigeria?
Thank you. That's a very important question. So several years back, you know, my background is in engineering, civil engineering. But then, of course, I crossed over into the social sciences, I should say. Apart from being a leadership person, I went on radio 30 years ago, began to teach people basic principles for success, and then also started the church. And then I took interest in the leadership process. I found out at the highest level of success, you become a leader. At first, you focus on yourself, succeeding for yourself, right? But when you bring in leadership, you actually empower other people to succeed. Then they help you to achieve bigger goals. What I then saw was this big gap. If leadership is this important, why don't we have leadership schools? The dearth of leadership skills is so palpable. So it's like, I was on a flight with a former governor, a friend. He did some things while he was governor that showed that he has capacity for vision. He could envision his state many years ahead. So I said to him, I love what you did while you were in office. You had vision. I said, but I cannot say the same about most of your contemporaries in political office. He said, Sam, Nigeria is like an aircraft that is being flown by pilots that did not go to flying school. And when they crash the plane, then everybody will be screaming. So I thought to myself, that is true. Okay, so where are the leadership schools? That's why I founded the Daystar Leadership Academy, March 2002. And actually now we've had over 52,000 people come through the school. We need leadership skills. So like you say, how do we do our recruitment? Well, as you can see, we're a democracy and the recruitment is done by the citizens. If most of the citizens don't know what leadership is and what it's about, then our recruitment process is flawed. How do we train Nigerians for leadership? Stop thinking that leadership is just about occupying a position. When we say our leaders, or we say leadership, everybody's mind goes to the people at the top in government. The definition has changed. I studied leadership right up to the doctoral level. Leadership is the ability to influence one or more people to achieve goals. The key word, influence. And once you bring the definition down to influence, then you see that it happens at all levels. Every one of us has leadership potential. The leaders don't drop from heaven. People that occupy leadership positions don't drop from heaven. They grow from amongst us. Okay, so you say the countries where they're getting things right, so how did they prepare people for leadership? It starts from the kindergarten. The best way to influence anyone is to love them and to serve them. Help to meet their needs. So this is what I found out, that in the parts of the world that are fast developing, they put service in the curriculum from primary school. They make their young people to do volunteering. You must go to an orphanage. You must go somewhere and offer your services for free without expecting anything in return. You get to high school, they actually raise it, they award you credits, they give you mark for doing volunteering. You want to go into university, they ask you to write a personal statement. What they are looking for there, one of the major things they're looking for, apart from your intelligence, the volunteering that you have done. We don't have that equivalent. The poverty in our environment makes everyone to focus on survival. So we are hyper-selfish, hyper-self-centered. That's why even in communities, right, or streets where you have some of us that are rich, you see the road wretched. Each house, powerful, beautiful, big, because that service aspect has been taken out for most of us. Now that's a disaster. If someone now gets into a position where they're head of a department or head of a state or even the country, but they have not gotten rid of self-centeredness. What the person will do with our commonwealth is to expend it on themselves. Their greatest vision would be how to get the most out of the commonwealth. So if this becomes the culture, then when we are picking leaders, we will not pick the person that is the richest, we will pick the person that serves the best. I think that's the way to go about fixing our recruitment process. It is Nigerians that choose the leaders. Anyway, I don't want to be complaining about it. That's why I started the leadership school. So I've been researching the solutions. I'll tell you this. Nobody, no leader is going to create sustainable change without shifting our thinking. That's what I'm driving at. You can never take people beyond the quality of their thinking. I researched it. I found out I could not even change my own life without changing my thinking, because leadership actually starts with self-leadership. That's the most powerful, most fundamental part of leadership. I discovered the formula. I discovered a powerful formula that whatever you see and hear consistently over time will enter your heart. It will go into your subconscious, become part of your second nature. Put your life on autopilot. I applied this principle to my life. I changed what I was seeing and hearing. I was seeing poverty and hearing poverty every day. So I tore pages of magazines. I printed pages of the internet. I wrote goals on plain sheets of paper, stuck them on the wall, in my bedroom, in my office. Honestly, it was like magic. Whatever it was I was seeing consistently, they became a normal part of my life. I applied this to our organization, right? I saw it was working. So right now what I've done is I developed a methodology, 6-step methodology out of it. You see, this principle, where whatever you see and hear consistently over time can change your life. That's why the media is powerful. That's why TVC is powerful. That's why the entertainment industry is powerful. That's why music is powerful. That's why Nollywood is powerful. That's why advertising is powerful. So I say, why don't you advertise your own future to yourself? That's what I did to myself. So in this book, my shift methodology, I call it shifts. The S is for see, the H is for hear, the I is for insight, the F is for formulate. That's where you make up your mind, make decisions. And then the T is transform, you take action. The S is for succeed. The book is being published by one of the largest publishers in the world, John Wiley & Sons. It will be out in 3 weeks' time. And then I'm organizing a conference called the Shift Leadership Conference in Lagos on February 8th. I want us to discuss this powerful principle and how we can use it to transform our nation. In the book, I wrote personal shifts, team and organizational shifts, national shifts, how we can leverage our educational system, the entertainment industry, the media, and so on, even the religious institutions, to shift the mindset of the average Nigerian so we can transform the country. I think that though this may be a very challenging time, it's also a time of great opportunity for the transformation of our nation.
Okay, Dr. Sam, we do not want to take for granted the millions of viewers who are actually listening to you right now. And looking at when you have started talking about this Leadership Institute, 2002 till now, speaks volume. So you may be able to count 50,000 plus, but there may have been a lot of people who may have also been impacted. But I want you to speak on this controversy in this two school of thought who believe that, you know, like one of the authors says that how Europe underdeveloped Africa, talking about Walter Rodney. And you also look at people saying that it doesn't have to be white to be right. So what does it take for us as a people to know that, hey, the blame game is over? We've become independent all this while. What does it take to be the Singapore and the US of this world without necessarily having to move over there?
Thank you so much. That's a beautiful question. So everyone has a history, right? So we have our history in our part of the world. What we should bear in mind is all over the world, when a people have experienced slavery or colonization, there are some basic characteristics that are common to them. The first one is low self-esteem. Low self-esteem. Slaves are treated with indignity, right? Secondly, poverty. Slaves cannot own anything. You can't ask how much is in the slave's bank account because the slave is somebody's property. So the slave and the bank account are the property of the owner. So another characteristic, mediocrity. If you have slaves, they live in the slums. They live in low-quality areas. Now, when people have been in such a state over a long period of time, remember I said, it goes into the subconscious. It becomes a part of their identity. I read about the elephant that is used in the circus show, how it is conditioned to be obedient, as big as it is. When the elephant is a baby, they tie a rope to its leg. They tie that rope to a stick. They leave it there for months, for a long time. Elephant roams about, but when it gets to the point where the rope is fully extended, rope pulls it, elephant stops. They found out that when after several months they remove that rope, the elephant will walk. When it gets to the point where it stopped before, it will stop and walk back. Never beyond. When I read that story many years ago, it hit me like a thunderbolt. Because what I saw had happened there was that the rope had moved from the leg of the elephant into its mind. I said to myself, a rope in the mind of the elephant is as effective as the rope on the leg of the elephant. We human beings are like that. We stay in an environment for long enough, the environment moves from the outside and moves on the inside, to the extent that even when you take us away from that environment, we still carry that environment along with us, and we will be behaving the way we behaved before. Slavery, colonization happened. We can't run away from that. Even now, there's still a world order, right, that makes our economies inferior to those of other countries. When we want to prosper, it threatens some other countries, fine. We have to change. We have to start with a change in our thinking, a change in our mindset. And I want to explain the role of leadership there. Once again, if you occupy a leadership position, it is a very rare opportunity that must not be wasted. It is ability to influence everybody to move in a particular direction. The first thing, therefore, is those institutions that have the capacity to influence the human mind, we need to use them positively now. In leadership, the most important tool for shifting people's mindset collectively is what we call vision. That mental picture of where we're going. So right now, my recommendation, we need to create a picture of what Nigeria will look like in 30 years' time, and it needs to be a developed economy. Those pictures have profound effect on people. Don't underestimate it. So I run a class in our leadership school. It is called National Development. We have a special session of it every July. We bring in teenagers from the age of 13 to the age of 19. In the class, I test something on the students. We have a reel that has pictures, right, and videos. The first part of the reel shows Nigeria the way it is. The traffic jam, the dirty areas and everything. And then at some point, the pictures change and then begin to show what Nigeria will look like. The schools in 2030, the library in 2040, the hospital, what the headquarters of the Nigeria police will look like, the Nigeria customs, the Air Force, what the aircraft will look like. When we switch to that, the class just becomes animated. And then you hear the young people will be clapping and shouting, and the chatter goes up in the class. I want to say this to us in this country, where there is no vision, people perish. It's in the Bible. If we don't decide that Nigeria will become a developed economy and actually create the pictures, right? Things that will stay with people, things that are memorable, that they can't forget, things that will roll over and over and over and over again in people's minds. If we don't establish that future Nigeria now, I'm sorry to say, 30 years from now, we may still be here. I know we don't like to hear that. In fact, a pastor should not be saying bad things, right? I'm sorry to say so. It's just that 30 years ago, if somebody said Nigeria was to look like this now, I would almost have slapped the person. But here we are. Where did we say we were going to be 30 years ago? So more than anything else now, Nigeria needs a vision. And everyone that has a platform, both public and private, needs to promote that vision, promote those pictures. That's very important. When we've established that vision, then we need to talk about values. What kind of behavior will make that vision possible? We talk about love, we talk about honesty, we talk about excellence, and so on. That's why I still believe in the possibility of a prosperous and successful Nigeria.
Yeah. Doctor, so where do you think we dropped the ball? Because when you look into our history, in 1896, 1897, this was, I mean, arguably the first spot where electricity, was first generated and distributed in Nigeria. Then we had universal adult suffrage before the United States, 1923. 1924. You had the Western Nigeria TV. Was that not first in Africa, or first it was West Africa? Now, and some other firsts here and there. Nigerians who, have led the way globally in different fields. Now, today, we have more of, we have tribesmen, but no citizens. People hardly want to identify themselves as Nigerians. And they actually argue that, yes, this is the reason why. And they put forth strong arguments to show why they shouldn't be Nigerians first before being any other thing. So where do you think we dropped the ball? And what is the path, what are the pathways to redemption?
Thank you so much. That's very inspiring data that you gave us then. The question we should ask ourselves is, we fought for independence. The people that led the charge were people who had the opportunity of getting education in developed economies. They had the capacity to envision our country as a developed economy. And that's why we made those quick strides, right, even after independence. However, there was deep distrust. We are a country that has different nations and cultures and aspirations and values put together. So there was a lot of negotiation when we were about to have our independence. But as soon as we got that independence, and then there was this high level of distrust. The leadership in many places just took over from the colonialists. And then it was like we now had internal colonialists. We were supposed to continue the conversation. you know, to carry on the conversation, carry on the negotiations, and to continue to improve on the system. But the system was truncated. And not long after we got our independence, then we had the military coup. We had young people in their 20s and 30s who came into leadership. What we must admit, and it is the same across Africa, is that a good chunk of the people that took over the leadership did not have the capacity. They did not have the vision. They did not have the leadership capacity or skills, and they squandered the opportunities that we had. I would say, what's the point crying over spilt milk, even though we need to identify what the core issues have been? So for us right now, the question would be, so what are we going to do? Leaders and entrepreneurs usually have the same kind of mindset. The average human being runs away from a problem. The entrepreneur runs towards it. They solve the problems. That's why they make the money. The same thing with the leader. The average person complains, sees obstacles. The leader sees an opportunity for a miracle. My call right now is to every Nigerian. All of us have the capacity to influence. Don't abandon the responsibility for building and using that influence. There's something I called learned state of helplessness. Once you listen to what everybody else around is saying, you will feel powerless, you will feel weak, you will feel you can do nothing. Yet most of those that have the greatest influence in our country right now were not born like that. They built the influence. You ask me, how do I build my influence? Capacity to affect other people positively. Be the problem solver and start from a small level. Give food to someone that is hungry on your street. Be the one to clean the street, right? Help people. Meet needs for people. Meet people's needs, okay, and gradually build your influence. You have tools at your disposal now that generations before you never had. Each person's phone now is their TV station, is their radio station, right? Is their newspaper. Use it as your platform. Add value to the community. Be a problem solver. Build gradually your influence. And it is that collective influence, gradually with time, you know, that's going to transform our country. I'm going to stop on this note. If you are going to be part of the new Nigeria, get rid of your discrimination. I say again, all the religions teach love. Hatred, bias, prejudice reduce our value as human beings. At the end of the day, we're all the same. We are all, even where the color of the skin is different. They found out that's where the difference ends. Everything from under that skin is the same. We're all human. Hunger doesn't know any tribe. Okay? So let's get rid of our discrimination, think collectively for the whole of Nigeria, and see how to improve everyone's quality of life. Start from the people in your family. Treat people with respect. Serve people with excellence. Give your best. At the end of the day, when we all collectively do that with time, I believe we're going to see the change. I should serve a warning. I've seen places where people fought for change in this world, countries where they fought for change. When the change suddenly happened, they were not ready for it. They did not have the skills. They did not have the character. Citizens of other countries came in because they needed the skills. And then when they used the opportunities, then you have what we call xenophobia. Oh, the strangers came and took my opportunity. So you need to develop the character, develop the skills, develop the competence, develop the love, develop the kindness. Get ready for the new Nigeria, because I believe it will happen very soon.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sam. But let's talk a little bit more about the Daystar Leadership Academy. More than 52,000 persons have passed through the Daystar Leadership Academy. But talk to us, what's the rallying point or the central attraction to the academy, at the academy?
Thank you very much. I think it's my story. It's the fact that when I was much younger, if I was in a group and you asked someone to volunteer to lead the group, I would be the last person. I'm an introvert. I used to find it difficult to look into the eyes of one person to talk. So to imagine myself standing before a crowd to talk was totally out of it. What changed it? A book. An elderly person, a reverend in my church, called me and said, there's something about you. Read this book. The book was titled Learning Christian Leadership by Donald S. Altman. This experience I'm describing was some 34, 35 years ago. He said, read this book. That was the first book I read on leadership. I was shocked. The author said, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, the old philosophers, they all agreed that few people are born to lead. Everybody else is born to follow. He said those theories are dead. If you read your Bible and you saw there, God created man and blessed him and gave him dominion. He said, just know that that dominion is influence. Every human being can do it. As you are reading this book, you can lead. Then the author listed the qualities of a leader and said you have some of these qualities already, whoever you are. The ones you don't have, you can cultivate. Honestly, the author was speaking to me. I had some of the qualities already. So for the first time, I accepted. I actually have leadership qualities. It then became my personal development goals to develop the ones I did not have. As I did, honestly, my life changed. Since then, any group in which I found myself, I've just simply floated to the top. Let me mention one of the qualities that I noticed I did not have. Remember, I'm an introvert. Communication was difficult. And so what did I do? I bought a book, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. How to start a conversation. You know, when I tell my friends that are extroverts, the ones that make friends easily, when I tell them these stories, they laugh. So you have to buy a book to read what comes naturally to them. Anyway, that's your own story. My own is that that was not my area of strength, right? I learned how to do it. I practiced. Today, I'm invited to speak at conferences all over the world because communication is a skill. That's why I'm saying leadership is a skill. Everybody can learn it. So when people hear my story, it inspires them. Secondly, yes, I was born to a middle-class family. My dad was a civil servant. Then he started his own business. He was a building contractor. That's why I studied civil engineering. Before I finished school, I was a director in the company. I was not supposed to look for work anywhere. Sadly, by the time I finished studying engineering, the company was dead. Then I had to search for a job for almost 2 years. I struggled, I suffered. When the business went down, the family suffered. People today can't even relate with my story. There was a time when there was no money to buy toothpaste. We put salt on the brush to brush the teeth, right? So when people see me, they hear those stories, and this guy can become like that, then there's hope for me. So they want to come, and then when they come, the things we share, because I'm an African. I grew up in Africa. The principles are the same everywhere. They have no respect for persons, but you have to adapt them to your context. Somebody said leadership is leading some people from point A to point B. If you are an American, you grew up in America, your point A is different from my point A. So when an American therefore wants to teach leadership to an African, it doesn't work because the person has no idea what it means to carry bucket on your head, to go and fetch water and carry bucket. I carried bucket, I even carried jerry can on my head. So Africans found out that they can relate more with my story. And I know how much change an African needs to make in their mindset to experience transformation in their lives. So our classes are actually revolutionary. When one person attends, they actually bring somebody else. They pay for someone else to come. One of our graduates was a commissioner. He's a former commissioner in Lagos State. When he was commissioner, he was paying for all the people. In fact, he said at a point, because they were asking him, why are you different? He did not allow people to treat him, you know, with like a big man. He carried his bag himself. He did not take bribe from anybody. So they were asking, where did you come from? He said, I went to the Star Leadership Academy. Sir, we want to go. So he said, oh, yeah, put your name on a list. So he was sponsoring them session after session with his own money. I think that's what has helped the school, my story, and then the many other stories that are coming out from the people that have attended the school. Their mindsets are different. I've met entrepreneurs who told me, my best employees are the people that went through your school. Those things make me happy. And now I'm calling on all the graduates of the school and everybody else. It's time for us to go national. It's time for us to move together as a movement. I call it the Shift Movement. That's why I'm organizing a conference in February, so that we can talk together and see how to move our nation forward and other nations around the world.
Okay, Dr. Sam, talking about moving the nation forward, there was a statement you made that I just quickly want to follow up on, and that has to do with saying that if you are discriminating, you can't be part of that new Nigeria that you talked about. Talk to leaders, talk to Nigerians who are watching you now. You know, one peculiar thing about Nigeria is our heterogeneous nature, where we are dealing with different tribes, where it is my turn, your turn, not really about merit, but it has to be about my brother, in quotes. So how do we move away? How do we have a paradigm shift from this mentality?
Thank you, sir. That's a very important question there. So the average African needs to understand this. One of the things we draw people's attention to in our leadership school, African culture does not rest on principles. Principles are, we call them laws, universal facts. If I throw my phone up here, it will come down. If I throw it 10,000 times, it will come down 10,000 times. If I feel, that's witchcraft. There is too much witchcraft in this Lagos. Then I fly to New York. If I throw the phone up, it will come down. If I go to Beijing, China, I throw the phone up, it will come down. Once you have a phenomenon that produces the same result like that, it establishes the presence of a principle. The principle there is gravity. Principles have no respect for persons. Principles, so they don't discriminate. Principles make success predictable. Like I said, even before I throw the phone, I can say what's going to happen. So principles make success predictable. African culture is not like that. African culture rests on myths, unverifiable myths. The more mysterious something is, the more likely an African would believe it. When you describe something and somebody says, For example, before, if our people tried to swim across a river, the first person drowned, the second person drowned, the third person drowned. They could not explain it. The next thing is to believe that there is a water spirit. There is a god inside the water that is killing them. And then our people will carry sacrifice. They'll carry pounded yam, they'll carry vegetable soup, they'll carry palm oil with salt, and go and be worshipping that olodo, that water spirit. And then the white man came and just built a bridge across the water. End of story, right? So an African needs to be conscious of that. Even when we become religious, the religiosity does not help. It even enhances it. You say, it is God. It is Satan. It is the witch. I grew up to hear this saying, this proverb, riddle. They say, the child cried last night. No, the witch cried last night. The child died this morning. Who does not know that it is the witch that killed the child? I said, forget. It is cerebral malaria that killed the child.
All right, doctor.
That's our problem.
We're pressed for time, but right. I would feel so bad, if I don't ask you this.
Right.
The Nigerian dream. Right. What is the Nigerian dream, and how do we begin to preach the Nigerian dream to those coming behind us to build this nation? Just in 1 minute, because we're pressed for time.
Thank you very much. So what I was trying to say is that principles don't discriminate. So when you do principle-centered leadership, you don't discriminate. If you're a leader and you discriminate, your failure is already guaranteed. How do we ensure that we all buy into this Nigerian dream? The president made this statement during his New Year speech, that there's going to be a national youth conference, a 30-day national youth conference where young people will be brought together to discuss the future of the country. I think it's one of the best opportunities that we have right now. Young people. 30 years ago, some of us were around. 40 years ago, 50 years ago, some of us were around. We're still where we are. how will you make your own future different? It starts with a dream. It starts with a vision. I know there are many things that make it difficult for you to believe in that vision. There's so much deprivation. There's so much suffering. I just want to say, there is nothing valuable man has created that did not exist first as an idea in somebody's mind. Nothing. So you need that clear idea in your mind of a developed Nigeria. And please, break free from selfishness. Think for all of us. Selfishness will make you to still be in the same place 30 years from now. Cooperate with other Nigerians to build that developed economy, even if it takes sacrifice today. 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now, things are going to be better than they are now.
Wow. Beautiful conversation, talking about leadership development and personal transformation. Thank you so much, Dr. Sam Adeyemi. Dr. Sam Adeyemi is the founder of Daystar Christian Center. Dr. Sam Adeyemi, thank you so much, for lecturing us, for talking to us about leadership and believing in the Nigerian dream. Thank you so much for joining us on Journalist Hangout.
Thank you for having me today, gentlemen. Once again, have a Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you as well. All right, gentlemen, it's a fine place to